Broadcasting from Manhattan Beach and the World Wide Web, you're listening to CHSR, HealthyLife.net.
As a service to our listeners, this program is for general information and entertainment purposes only. CHSR, HealthyLife.net does not recommend, endorse, or object to the views, products, or topics expressed or discussed by show hosts or their guests. We suggest you always consult with your own personal, medical, financial, or legal advisor.
Hey there, and welcome back to the Dr. Theresa Nicassio Show. This is a place of inspiration, education, and hope for a kinder, healthier, and more sustainable world. On this show, we talk with thought leaders about the things that matter most to you. Our guests enlighten and empower us with simple solutions and cutting-edge perspectives about the toughest and most controversial of life's challenges so that we can face them with greater ease. To start, I'd like you to please join me in thanking our show sponsor, New Roots Herbal, for making this show possible. As one of Canada's most respected natural health product companies, it's wonderful having their support in this very big vision to help the world be a better place. To learn more about this great company and their natural health products, go to newrootsherbal.com and check it out. They're amazing. And at that site, you can also find where you can get their products near you. And if you'd like to be a sponsor for a segment to share your products or services with the show's wonderful audience of more than 350,000 monthly listeners, contact me directly through my TheresaNicassio.com website. Now, Theresa with an H, so it's TheresaN like Nancy, ICASS, so two S's like Sam, I-O.com, and I'll get right back with you. It would be fantastic to open that up. I've been focusing more on just the show sponsorship to this point, but I'm ready to branch out to also have segment sponsors as well. Be sure to join us next time when we are going to be privileged to hear from none other than Barbara Aerosmith Young herself. She's going to be with us talking about how she used neuroplasticity to reverse many of her own cognitive challenges and how she's now helping countless others do the same. And I want to say that having been personally touched by Barbara's work in our own family through the Eaton Aerosmith School in Vancouver, Barbara's interview is one that I'm particularly moved to be able to share with all of you. I've been thinking about it for a couple of years now. Anyway, especially if you are parents of children with learning disabilities or other special learning challenges, and even those of you who yourselves have struggled with such difficulties in your life, this is a show you are going to want to listen to, I would say watch, and also let people you care about who might also be interested, be sure to let them know as well. And soon you'll be able to get the information on the TheresaNicassio.com website about Barbara, as well as links to some of her great stuff. But for today's program, we're going to get down and dirty as we dig deep into an issue that is not only an environmental problem, and we're going to be talking about solutions, because this is all about positive talk radio here, but this challenge is now becoming known to be at the root of our global health crisis. And we talk a lot about health of our bodies, but also health of the planet, and it turns out, as we're going to be hearing from today's guests, we're really talking about one and the same thing. So we have with us here today Emeritus Professor from UBC, a local hero here in Canada. He's an Emeritus Professor of Physics and Astronomy. Dr. Phil Gregory is going to be sharing information about the complex microbiome of the soil. Right? It's not just in our gut. It's not just on our body, but of the soil, and the link between soil health and our own health as humans. I promise you, this show today, you're going to have a lot of new information, amazing content that is going to change how you think about a lot of things, and hopefully we can all join together in making a difference. So a little bit about Phil. So having devoted his entire career to scientific research as an astrophysicist, studying studying the stars, studying the planets. He made huge waves globally in the scientific community with his discovery of a new kind of star that actually cannibalized other stars. Kind of crazy. Got in Nature Journal, and it was a big news. And he later initiated and directed a project called the Galactic Radio Patrol, using the world's largest steerable telescope. Could you imagine? That'd be amazing. Phil's research attention, though, suddenly shifted to studying our own planet, our own soil, our own magical world here, when he heard the very sobering United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization's announcement in 2014 that we have only 60 years of farming left if soil degradation continues. Yeah, I'm serious. You heard that right. We have only 60 years of farming left if soil degradation continues. And that was in 2014, and so I guess we're looking at 55 years. This is very, very serious business. As a parent, grandparent, and great-grandparent, this announcement chilled Phil Gregory to his bone and energized him to do all that he can to make a difference and help turn this boat around so that future generations, his grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-great, everybody's children, great-grandchildren, will have a viable planet to live and thrive on. Anyway, there's so much more I could say about this brilliant man, but I'll leave it at that for now, and instead I'm going to invite you to visit his profile page that I've created on the TheresaNicassio.com website, where you can find tons of info about Phil, as well as all the other guests as well. But also on that page, you're going to find links to his papers, presentations, and videos. Just full of content. It's unbelievable. I've been devouring the information. And as with all the shows, after this live program airs, you'll be able to listen to the recorded podcasts and YouTube eventually in a few months, videos of these interviews at no cost. Anytime once they're uploaded, and I will create, again, right on that same page on the TheresaNicassio.com page, you just find Phil's title and picture and click on him, and it'll take you right to his page, and you'll be able to enjoy learning more from him. And over time, as he produces more things, I will be updating that page as well. Phil, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much, Theresa, for your kind introduction.
No, absolutely.
And, I'm only too happy to share my journey with your listeners.
That would be great. So why don't we talk about your why and why soil health is so important?
Well, once I started this exploration of agriculture and a wide range of topics that are all connected, I rapidly realized that the way we are doing agriculture today is completely unsustainable. Firstly, for every ton of food we're producing, we're losing over 7 tons of topsoil.
7 tons of what was that?
7 tons of topsoil. So how unsustainable is that? But in addition, we're using 10 calories of fossil fuel to produce 1 calorie of food.
Yeah. Go back to the topsoil for just a flash, because I think one of the things I saw that you had written was that it takes, and I asked my husband, he's an environmental scientist too, but in different air quality and such, but I asked him, I said, do you know how long it takes to produce 3 centimeters of topsoil? And I don't know what he guessed, 50 years or something. And it takes 1,000 years?
Well, now that's the conventional understanding. It turns out that it actually can be produced much more rapidly than that. Oh. So we used to think that the formation of soil was due to the weathering of rocks. But soil is actually much more than that. It contains a lot of organic matter. And starting about 450 million years ago, when the first life forms emerged from the ocean onto the surface of the planet, onto the rocks, those first life forms included a symbiotic relationship between an algae and a fungus in the form of a lichen. And the reason why they had to get together is that the fungi need carbon compounds to power their mining operations. And so we need photosynthesis, and the algae were providing the photosynthesis to produce the sugars that feed the fungi. The fungi, they secrete organic acids and enzymes, and they can literally tunnel through rocks, sand, silt, and clay, extracting the nutrients, extracting all the elements those rocks are made of, and providing them then back to the algae who need these other nutrients as well for their life. And when these lichens die, their detritus is effectively soil. That is the way soil was formed on our planet. So it's biology that is actually producing the soils. Now, of course, if you look at soil, it's a combination of biology, the organic matter produced by biology, and mineral particles, right? So weathering does play a role in helping to produce those mineral particles, but the mining operations of the lichen and the fungi in our soils is much more impressive. So
well, it sounds like there's this whole like world that is it's like cities or buildings and that develop in the soil that my eyes are really opened up to that and the soil is actually very alive and there's a lot of common the typical agricultural practices like tilling the ground of plowing. Can you talk a little bit about what happens with that?
Sure. Well, just to back up just for a minute, if you take a teaspoonful of healthy soil, there's as many microbes as there are in that teaspoon as there are, humans living on the planet Earth.
That just blows my mind.
It's quite amazing, right?
Yeah, a teaspoon.
Now, those microbes, which include bacteria and fungi, at the base of what is called a predator-prey relationship, because in addition to the bacteria and fungi, they're predators, microscopic predators, and then larger predators as well. There's a whole hierarchy of predators. So, these bacteria and fungi at the base, they're secreting biotic glues, and they're building underground cities that are held together by those biotic glues and by fungal strands, right? So healthy soil is actually very porous. There are channels in there for air and water to penetrate to great depths in the soil. And, roots of plants will only grow as deep as that air and water penetrates. So we weren't aware of this, really. And so ever since the Greeks, we have been plowing the soil, mainly to, we think, soften it up so, plants can get a hold, and to turn the weeds underneath so the plants have a competitive advantage. But we hadn't realized that there was all this biology happening down there, invisible biology, the whole universe, and that by plowing, we were slicing and dicing these underground cities that they live in, their homes, turning that living soil into dirt. And once we'd done that enough in the old world and the new world, we were starting to have difficulties growing anything.
It was like concrete cities, and then you want to grab. When we went to Rome, my husband and I, we couldn't believe it. There was like almost no green space. Everything was concrete and rocks, and it's hard for things to grow when you don't have places to grow.
Well, not only that, but when you have taken away the biology that nature created, that provides all the nutrients for plants and trees and the green universe that we live in, then it turns out that if you destroy the biology, the only way you can grow plants is by adding chemicals, by adding the nitrogen, the phosphorus, and the potassium, which are only 3 of about 42 elements that a plant needs to grow strong and healthy, to have a strong immune system, you know, to prevent it from becoming diseased and prey to insects and other pests.
So if the plants aren't getting the nutrients, and we are what we eat, and we eat the plants, or even, you know, if we eat animals, then we eat the animals who eat the plants that don't have the nutrients. What does that mean for us as humans and our health?
Well, I like to think of it as this, that the plants that we grow today with conventional agriculture, they look like plants, but they're very unhealthy by and large. They're deficient in many micronutrients, and we eat those plants, and we evolved, you know, that in such a way that plants were a source of food, and as well as the animals that fed on those plants. So the, you know, having the elements that we are made of in just the right proportions really depends on the plants having those elements present in just the right proportions. So we have plants that look like plants, but they're really not quite what nature intended. And so one has to ask, you know, are we humans that only look like humans?
Yeah. Well, things are definitely changing. Well, just speaking of the human piece, the other thing that I learned not too long ago, and you spoke about, you know, you had a little bit different numbers but kind of similar, but I learned that something like, as humans, we are only like 10% human, and we're 90% microbial, like those other critters you're talking about. And
that's right.
That the average, each of us average human beings has over 100 trillion microbes in our body. I mean, that 10% of us is our DNA, and 90% or so is these microbes. Is that? I mean, we are the same as the Earth. It sounds like the soil that you're talking about.
Yes, in fact, you know, when you eat a lettuce leaf that has been grown in healthy soil, that lettuce leaf is protected by, you know, a sea of biotic glues that cover its surface, within which live all these microbes. This is just the above-ground material, right? And below ground, of course, there are just many more of these microbes. So that when you wash your lettuce now, you can't actually wash off these biotic glues. They're so strong. And so you're ingesting that lettuce. You're ingesting all of those microbes as well. And that's undoubtedly part of the way in which we acquired 3 or 4 pounds of microbes in our gut, which we now depend upon.
Right. So, and I know we have so much to cover. We don't have enough time for everything, but can we, if we get this basic principle here that we are mostly microbial, these microorganisms, you know, we're bacteria, we're a lot of fungi, we're
viruses,
a lot of these
archaea, a whole host of things.
All kinds of things. And the plants and the microbiome of the soil has all these different things and all these little nematodes and all kinds of things that are all making things happen. What about pesticides? How do pesticides impact on that microbiome of the soil and hence then ultimately our own microbiome? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's certainly a key question, and you know, if you just turn the clock back a bit to when we realized we've got to add, we're finding we can grow things better if we add the chemicals, the N, P, and K fertilizers.
It's like us with supplements, huh?
But because the plants were deficient in the other trace elements, they were then prone to disease, and you know, insects and other disease agents like root-feeding fungi, their job is they're the garbage collectors. So they come along and they say, oh, that's sending a signal, it's garbage, I go and eat that, right? So that resulted in, because of the way we were growing our food, that resulted in producing weakened plants, which then were prone to disease and prone to insect infestation. So, of course, then we developed chemicals magic bullets to try and eliminate these things.
Mm-hmm.
And, over time, of course, these disease, these invasive diseases, they're become tolerant and resistant to many of the chemicals,
right.
Which causes us to use more and more of these chemicals.
Right.
Now, the biggest chemical that's used, the biggest biocide that we spray on our plants, is glyphosate.
Right.
And glyphosate is it's not well realized that glyphosate is a broad-spectrum antibiotic.
Right.
So, we've been using antibiotics to great advantage in the early part of the last century. The last part of the last century, from 1950 onwards, we basically eliminated a lot of serious infectious disease problems by the use of antibiotics.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, we didn't know about our gut microbiome.
Exactly.
All these microbes living there.
Yeah, and I'm going to pause this right there because we have a lot to talk about with the glyphosate and health and so forth. But we need to go to a break already. Stick around, folks. We're going to hear more from Dr. Phil Gregory when we come back. We'll be right with you.
Acidophilus Ultra from New Roots Herbal is your go-to product for great health. To maintain potency, Acidophilus Ultra is protected by a natural water-based enteric coating. This daily probiotic supports your health in so many ways. It helps boost your immune system, aids digestion and bloating, and that's just for starters. So remember the name, Acidophilus Ultra from New Roots Herbal. Get some now. To find a store near you, visit newrootsherbal.com. That's newrootsherbal.com.
Audiobooks gives you instant access to over 50,000 of the best sellers and hottest book titles in romance, mystery, fiction, and many other genres. Just visit HealthyLife.net's advertiser page and click on Audiobooks to get started.
YumFoodForLiving.com is the place to get easy allergy-free recipes, all free of sugar, gluten, and dairy. But that's not all you'll get when you visit YumFoodForLiving.com. You'll get resources for all kinds of things like wellness articles, videos, podcasts, the blog, all to help you create easy, healthy living. There's even a 50-page downloadable book introducing you to the philosophy of Yum. Don't wait. Visit YumFoodForLiving.com. YumFoodForLiving.com. That's YumFoodForLiving.com.
If you like to spend your television viewing time learning about some of the things that you may have missed in history class, or if history was your favorite subject, then you should check out the link to the History Channel on the HealthyLife.net advertiser page. Order DVD sets by series or by subject matter right from our homepage while you still enjoy your favorite HealthyLife.net show.
Being inspired by a speaker while learning everyday positive information that you can use to help your life is exactly what Dr. Theresa Nicassio does when she speaks in front of your group. From healthcare professionals to special needs parenting and everything in between, Dr. Theresa Nicassio can customize topics for your group on everything from health to psychology. To book Dr. Theresa Nicassio as a speaker for your group, visit YumFoodForLiving.com or call 604-445-6463. That's 604-445-6463.
You're listening to HealthyLife.net, the radio network that brings positive talk with positive change to make your world a little better.
Welcome back to the Dr. Theresa Nicassio Show. If you're just joining us, today we're here with soil health advocate Dr. Phil Gregory, talking about the implications of the UN Food and Agriculture Organization announcement in 2014 that we have only 60 years, I guess that would be now 55 years, of farming left if soil degradation continues. And he's also going to be talking about ways we can reverse this land and food security crisis. So, Phil, we were just touching upon the big kahuna before the break. We were talking about pesticides. We were talking about this fancy, complex world that we've just discovered of the microbiome of the soil, our planet, and where life really comes from, and also that we've been doing, killing the life. We have in 1 teaspoon of healthy living soil, we have more life forms than we have human beings on the planet. This is massive, guys. If you think about how many lives we're annihilating, how much life we're annihilating on the planet, which then is the source of our life. So the big kahuna that is so controversial and is actually outlawed in many countries is glyphosate. And as you were mentioning right before the break, Phil, the glyphosate is actually a broad-spectrum antibiotic. I didn't know that. I didn't think of it that way. I thought of it as just poison, but it's actually an antibiotic. So you want to carry on and talk a little bit about glyphosate, how it affects plants, how it affects insects, how it affects us maybe on our human health, because there's some very disturbing research around that, and even how it affects that whole microbiome.
Well, I think most of the listeners are aware that there's a lot of bacteria that have become resistant to antibiotics these days, and the medical community is very concerned about that. The focus has been, well, we've got to reduce the use within the medical practice of antibiotics. But perhaps it's not well known that we use way more antibiotics in agriculture than in all of medicine. And the biggest culprit is this broad-spectrum antibiotic, glyphosate. We are using, it's sprayed in the U.S., 300 million pounds a year were used, based on the data from
300 million pounds of
300 million pounds.
Oh, my God.
That's 39 times the amount of antibiotics that are used in all of medicine.
Holy cow.
So, where's the culprit here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's identify the culprit and realize, once again, this is completely unsustainable. And these antibiotics are just destroying our gut microbiome.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and you're talking about the antibiotics from the soil are destroying our microbiome.
We get freshly delivered to us every day when we eat our food.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that one of the things that was discovered in 1980 in Scotland was that if you spray glyphosate on your wheat just before you harvest, it kills the wheat and it then drives the energy of the plant, its last remaining gas, into producing the grains, the seeds. And it can do that up to 2 weeks earlier, so that in northern climates where there's a risk of a bad harvest because of weather, by spraying glyphosate freshly onto the plant just before you harvest it, you can, it's an economic success. You can reduce the harvest time by 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to realize that that's providing you, in your food, your bread products, and everything that wheat is used from. Well, that's providing you with a fresh supply of antibiotics.
Wow.
So that's what we have to live with.
Right. So weren't there, going back to human health, weren't there some recent court cases in California that Roundup, the glyphosate, which is in Roundup, which most people think about is, it's quite a brand, popular weed killer for you put on your grass or your plants or whatever, but that it actually causes cancer. Is that
Yes, last year, in fact, San Francisco jury found in favor of a school groundkeeper dying of cancer.
Yeah.
Whose lawyers argued that a weed killer made by the agribusiness giant Monsanto likely caused his disease. And the jury awarded the plaintiff, Dwayne Johnson, $289 million in damages.
Wow.
Johnson's case was particularly significant because a judge allowed the team to present scientific arguments.
Mm-hmm.
So later that court verdict was upheld by another court, but the amount was reduced from $289 million down to $78 million.
And he was dying of cancer anyway.
Yes, right.
Okay.
And then just last month, a federal jury awarded $80 million to another plaintiff, Edwin Hardman, after determining that Monsanto's popular weed killer Roundup was a substantial factor in causing his cancer, and that their corporation is liable.
So this is, I think this is reason for hope that it's getting out there, and in many countries, glyphosate is now banned. But what about the U.S. and Canada?
It's definitely not banned in the U.S. and Canada. In fact, as recently as January of this year, Health Canada reaffirmed its 2017 approval of glyphosate to allow it to be used for another 15 years.
Oh, my gosh.
They concluded glyphosate products pose no risk to people or the environment as long as they're properly used and labeled. However, you have to keep in mind the fact that the safety levels for glyphosate in drinking water in Canada are 2,800 times the European safety levels.
That's what they're saying. It's safe. It's 2,800 times is what we're saying it is in Canada? The safety, the minimum standard, that you have to do better than, to consider glyphosate unsafe in water, the level that we set, the bar that we set is so high that bar is 2,800 times higher than the European level. Wow.
So, if you set the bar high enough, anything will be safe, according to Health Canada.
And how do we know how much is in our water? How much of this glyphosate is in our water? I mean, where can we get clean water?
Yes. That is the question. No one is really measuring it. You see, when glyphosate was introduced in the 70s, it was argued that it was absolutely safe to mammals because what it does in a plant is it interferes with an enzyme pathway called the shikimate pathway.
The shikimate pathway. Yes, Cindy O'Meara talked about that when she was on here from What's with Wheat. That's huge.
But back then, it was argued, human cells don't have the shikimate pathway.
But we do.
Well, we do in our gut microbes.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of important. Hello, leaky gut.
However, the agencies that basically are supposed to be regulating this are really not doing their job. They're also, busily promoting ideas of biotechnology and the use of genetically modified organisms.
Right. Wow. So we're going to have to go for another break, but I just want to say I just saw that movie. It was premiered. What was the name? Giraud. It called Modified. I know Rachel Parent was in. Yeah. So we can maybe talk a bit about that. There was some amazing talking about some of the it seems like sort of corruption, if I can use that word loosely, in terms of the corrupting science and what information is getting out there and who's maybe getting bought to say certain things and say that things are safe. So we're going to have to come back and talk more about this when we get back. So more with Dr. Phil Gregory when we return. Stick around.
There's a book that makes it so easy to embrace a healthy, gluten-free lifestyle, even kids will like it. Filled with heartwarming stories, food as medicine health tips, easy allergy-free recipes, and creative culinary inventions, the award-winning book Yum by Dr. Theresa Nicassio is your source for all of this and more. So make gluten-free living easy, tasty, and fun. Get Yum, plant-based recipes for a gluten-free diet at Amazon.com. Or visit yumfoodforliving.com. That's yumfoodforliving.com.
You have too little time to shop.
So try Farm Fresh to You. They deliver organic food the way nature intended, delivered straight to your home or office, economically. Visit our web advertiser page and click on Farm Fresh to You now.
When you have a food allergy or dietary limitation, Dr. Theresa Nicassio knows it's hard to give up the foods you love, so she decided to put on her chef hat and give you affordable, personalized culinary consultations that will light up your taste buds. You'll explore substitute ingredients so you can enjoy your favorite foods again. She'll even help you make food preparation easy and guide you on your path to healthy living. And to get started, all you have to do is call 604-445-6463. That's 604-445-6463.
If you're not in the U.S., listen up. SureTrader is one of the most trusted and reliable names in share trading. With 6-to-1 leverage and other perks, SureTrade is the best for penny stocks and day trades. To find out more, visit our advertiser page and click on the SureTrader banner.
YumFoodForLiving.com is the place to get easy, allergy-free recipes, all free of sugar, gluten, and dairy. But that's not all you'll get when you visit YumFoodForLiving.com. You'll get resources for all kinds of things like wellness articles, videos, podcasts, a blog, all to help you create easy, healthy living. There's even a 50-page downloadable book introducing you to the philosophy of yum. Don't wait. Visit YumFoodForLiving.com. YumFoodForLiving.com. That's YumFoodForLiving.com.
HealthyLife.net, the positive radio network.
We're back again, folks. Welcome back. You're listening to the Dr. Theresa Nicassio Show. If you're just tuning in, we are here with us today with astrophysicist Dr. Phil Gregory, who shifted from studying planets out there in the bigger sphere outside of us and stars in the galaxy to learning about the complex world on our own planet Earth, and specifically soil and soil health after learning about the crisis that we are facing currently. Just before the break, we were talking a bit about some chemical that we've all been exposed to on a daily basis called glyphosate. It's a pesticide, which it turns out is actually also an antibiotic. And as Dr. Gregory was mentioning, there's unbelievable amounts of this antibiotic putting out there, way more than what we get from the medical system. So let's just start talking about a little bit more about this glyphosate and the impacts on health that we know about the impact on our pollinators and the other critters in our microbiome and the food circle, food chain.
Well, a lot to be said, of course. In the last 20 years, there's been an absolute explosion of epidemics of chronic disease, ranging from diabetes, obesity, asthma, allergies, cancer, infertility, and also neural disorders like autism, attention deficit disorder, Alzheimer's, and depression. And these have just exploded into existence in the last 20 years. And, of course, what's been happening in the last 20 years is the introduction of GMOs to agriculture. And because genetically modified crops can be readily sprayed and are not sensitive to glyphosate, we've been seeing ever-increasing amounts of glyphosate being used. And glyphosate, as I mentioned, is a broad-spectrum antibiotic, and, of course, you start feeding that to your gut bacteria, and then you're wiping out your gut bacteria. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that our gut bacteria are responsible for making 50% of the dopamine that the body uses and 90% of the serotonin. Mm-hmm. These are neurotransmitters. Mm-hmm. And when you're not getting sufficient neurotransmitters, is it any surprise that we're seeing all kinds of neural disorders like autism, attention deficit disorder, Alzheimer's?
On the depression and anxiety, as psychologists, the rise in 32 years, I can't believe the rise in depression and anxiety, and how many kids are suffering from depression and anxiety that just weren't before. It doesn't really mean it didn't exist before, but just that shikimate pathway. Cindy, when she was on the show, and she was talking about that too, and it was on the film. it's with that shikimate pathway that you actually can produce those, ultimately, the neurotransmitters. And so if it's getting disrupted by this glyphosate, then it's no wonder that we're seeing less happy people. And
right.
it really gets my goat. It's just very tragic.
Yes, I mean, to put some big figures into the discussion, Dr. Zach Bush, this triple board certified American doctor, mentioned on one of his lectures that in the U.S. the incidence of chronic disease was 4% in 1965, but today 46% of our children have a chronic disease.
Wow. And you and I both have been faced. You wrote an article about some of the stuff that you've dealt with, and I wrote a book that came out of some of that as well. And we're not alone. We are just samples of what we're seeing a growth of.
But what I found is the good news is that we now, through a revolution that's happened in the last 20 to 30 years in soil biology, and understanding more about nature's complexity, we now know how to grow our food, transform this chemical-intensive agriculture model to regenerative agriculture, where we basically mimic nature and grow our food with the help of these billions and billions and trillions of soil microbes. Mm-hmm. Which is what they were designed to do, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we had Andy Lopez on. You probably know Andy Lopez. He was sort of one of the leaders in the organic and really the regenerative, and I think in many ways regenerative work with agriculture and gardening. And he was talking a lot about some of the things that you mentioned as well. So can you talk a little bit more, because there's some other pieces to this equation that we didn't talk about with Andy, and that you've kind of, that I think is a core piece about how regenerative agriculture is many steps beyond. It's organic agriculture, but it's actually plus, and it gets to issues around climate change and carbon. And can you talk a little bit about some of this and
Sure.
how it impacts the global greenhouse warming and such?
So this big soil revolution I'm talking about is really all about discovering nature's bartering system. It turns out that plants, what they're really good at doing is photosynthesis. They take carbon dioxide from the air and water from the roots, and they are able, using sunlight, to convert that into sugars. And these sugars are then used to, of course, grow the plant, but they also ship some of these sugars down to the roots. And it came as a surprise that up to 40% of these sugars that were going down to the roots were actually leaking out the roots intentionally to attract and feed these soil microbes. So why would they do that? Well, it turns out that these sugars, these carbon compounds, are like the batteries that the microbes run on. And it's a bartering system in which the microbes return all the other elements, some 39 other elements that the plants need, apart from what they get from carbon dioxide and water, in order to grow strong and healthy. And, one of the things that we just realized in the last 20 years is that the fungal component of those microbes, they're running the world's biggest mining operation. Their fungal strands are literally tunneling into the rocks, into the sand and the silt and the clay, and they're extracting all the elements that those rocks and minerals are made from, bringing them back in their pipelines to the plant, to feed the plant.
It's amazing. It's like the fungi. I saw this whole thing about how they have this underground communication systems with everything. It's almost like they are the masters of the universe, or of our planet, of our life.
Yes, well, certainly some people would argue that.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
That is the case. And as you mentioned, research in the last 20 years has shown that there's this underground internet. It's called the Wood Wide Web. But it's much more sophisticated than our internet, because not only are plants signaling one another and signaling microbes and saying, look, I need this nutrient, please provide it, and here's, by the way, my payment, here's my Bitcoin, a carbon compound. But they're also able to share nutrients. So, in a forest, a large conifer is able to provide nutrients to its offspring by hooking up to the Wood Wide Web and passing the nutrients along.
Wow, like a very altruistic system.
Our idea that you have to have monocultures to avoid competition, it's just not understanding the way nature works underground.
Right. Well, we're going to have to speak some more about that and the importance of the diverse, moving away from monocultures to actually something that's instead of having everybody live in cages, and that we really got to be connected, and just like us humans, we need each other. The plants need each other as well, of different sorts. So we will carry on with that when we get back, and focusing on the solutions, folks. We've already started here. This regenerative agriculture is part of a solution that really can make a difference. So we're going to have some good news after the break. So stick around. We'll be right back with Dr. Phil Gregory.
Very good.
Acidophilus Ultra from New Roots Herbal is your go-to product for great health. To maintain potency, Acidophilus Ultra is protected by a natural water-based enteric coating. This daily probiotic supports your health in so many ways. It helps boost your immune system, aids digestion and bloating, and that's just for starters. So remember the name, Acidophilus Ultra from New Roots Herbal. Get some now. To find a store near you, visit newrootsherbal.com. That's newrootsherbal.com.
VMware is a fresh perspective for virtualization on the cloud. Shaping the future, this all-in one platform delivers virtual cloud service on any cloud. Visit our HealthyLife.net's advertiser page and click on VMware.
When you have a food allergy or dietary limitation, Dr. Theresa Nicassio knows it's hard to give up the foods you love, so she decided to put on her chef hat and give you affordable, personalized culinary consultations that will light up your taste buds. You'll explore substitute ingredients so you can enjoy your favorite foods again. She'll even help you make food preparation easy and guide you on your path to healthy living. And to get started, all you have to do is call 604-445-6463. That's 604-445-6463.
For the best in business class travel, count on Cheapo Air. Cheapo Air has the best price guarantee, 24/7 customer service, and easy booking online or by phone. To experience your hassle-free journey, start by going to HealthyLife.net's advertiser page and click on Cheapo Air.
There's a book that makes it so easy to embrace a healthy, gluten-free lifestyle, even kids will like it. Filled with heartwarming stories, food as medicine health tips, easy allergy-free recipes, and creative culinary inventions, the award-winning book Yum by Dr. Theresa Nicassio is your source for all of this and more. So make gluten-free living easy, tasty, and fun. Get Yum, plant-based recipes for a gluten-free diet at Amazon.com or visit yumfoodforliving.com. That's yumfoodforliving.com.
Radio your way. HealthyLife.net.
Welcome back to the Dr. Theresa Nicassio Show. If you're just joining us, today we are here with Dr. Phil Gregory talking about restorative agriculture, climate change, and food security. Just before the break, we were talking about this regenerative agriculture, and when I was doing prep for the show and I made his page, one of the things I said was that Dr. Phil was a sustainability advocate, and he was very clear that he is not a sustainability advocate, and I was quite stunned. Phil, can you share with the audience? It really made sense when she told me about it. I was like, wow. Talk a little bit about that, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Well, it turns out that we don't want to sustain a badly degraded system that we currently have. Mm-hmm. You know, native soils have typically 4 to 5% carbon in their soil, and carbon is essential for soil fertility. But the way we've been doing agriculture, we've driven, in most agricultural fields, we've driven that down to under 1%. So, no, we don't want to, sustain that degraded system. We now know through this revolution in soil biology how we can restore the carbon to the soil. And so that's one of the things that we were able to do. And, of course, where does that carbon come from? It comes from the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. Which we've got too much in the atmosphere now.
We have too much in the atmosphere. It's warming the planet. So the fact that these microbes can pull that down and restore, carbon to the soil, which will increase the soil fertility, is a big plus, because we've got to get, even if we stop using fossil fuels entirely, we still have to get the carbon out of the atmosphere, the excess carbon out of the atmosphere, or our atmosphere will continue to warm. Mm-hmm. And that's the promising thing, is that using regenerative agriculture, we are able to pull that carbon back out of the atmosphere and put it in the soil.
So instead of putting poison in the air to try to reduce the carbon in the air, we can actually nurture the plants and give them and the soil what it's needing, and shift the balance back to where it's supposed to be. You also mentioned about animal grazing. I was stunned, because I thought that the animals grazing, and their poop and everything, the methane, and all of this, that this was a big part of the cause of global warming and climate change. But it turns out it's actually a very different story.
Yes, we were once just as certain that the Earth was flat.
Yeah.
It's that big a myth. We just simply didn't understand nature's complexity around grazing animals.
And I know a lot of you listening right now are wondering, what the heck is he talking about? So keep listening, because I was also wondering too. I'm like, what? But go ahead.
Yeah. So the way we've been doing grazing, we've basically been turning a lot of the grazing land, especially in arid regions, into deserts. And that's because we've not been paying close attention to the plant recovery time. Mm-hmm. When you put a group of cattle into a native pasture, there are over 100 different plant species, and cattle, like humans, have their preferences, and so they'll go after their preferred grasses until they've eaten them, and then they'll move on to something else. But as soon as that's the preferred grass starts to grow again as a baby grass, growing very slowly, they're right back chomping. And so the roots, well, they need to be refortified by photosynthesis from the above-ground plant, but that's not happening. So if you allow continuous grazing, you're going to kill those plants, especially in the arid regions. Now, nature does it very differently. So in nature, grasslands, herbivores, and ferocious predators co-evolve together. So in nature, you see these giant herds of wildebeest in Africa, and you're well aware that in North America, we used to have hundreds of millions of bison roaming the plains, along with their ferocious predators. Now, the predators cause the herbivores to be bunched into very dense herds and forces them to keep moving. For one thing, they're urinating and defecating everywhere, and no animal likes to eat its own defecation. So it's in these very dense herds, they're continuously moving. And they don't get to eat the grass just as it starts to regrow. In fact, when they come back from their migration, the grass is fully grown and then needs to be eaten. Mm-hmm. So when we focus on plant recovery time, we would do grazing in an entirely different way. Imagine that pasture which we were continuously grazing before. Now imagine dividing it into from 30 to 60 different paddocks, where a paddock is defined by an electric fence which simulates the predators. So now you allow all the cattle to feed in that one paddock for just one day, and then you get them off into the next paddock.
You keep them moving, so they're not eating in the same area, so it gives them some time to regrow.
Exactly. So they don't get back to that original paddock for about 60 days. And in that period of time, the grass is completely regrown.
And the numbers were phenomenal. And it actually reduced the carbon emissions as opposed to increasing.
Oh, yes. In fact, you're not only reducing carbon emissions, you're sequestering carbon. Mm-hmm. You're actually taking net carbon out of the atmosphere.
It's amazing. It's part of the solution. And we're going to fly. I don't have a lot more time. I want you to mention at least really quickly what the French government's doing.
Well, the French government is very enlightened on soil biology and regenerative agriculture. And, you know, when we had COP21 in 2015, when all the countries came together and agreed to cutting their emissions by a certain amount, the French asked their agricultural division to do a calculation. Are all these commitments going to keep us below 2 degrees centigrade or 1.5 degrees centigrade? And the answer came back, no, they're not. Mm-hmm. So then the agricultural agency said, but we can make up the difference by sequestering carbon in the soil, by changing the way we do agriculture.
Right.
So they started this project, they call it 4 per 1,000. That is to restore 0.4% of the carbon in the soil every year. Mm-hmm. And this is deemed to be completely feasible. And
Great.
Something like 36 countries have signed up to do this. Unfortunately, Canada and the U.S. are not part of that, right, although they are sending observers.
I'm going to have to suggest you folks go to the website to Phil's page and learn more about it, because we're running out of time. Phil, thank you so much for coming, and thank all of you out there for tuning in today. I want to also thank our sponsor, New Roots Herbal, for making this show possible. Be sure to join us next time when we're going to have Barbara Aerosmith-Young with us, talking about how she not only was able to change her own brain using neuroplasticity, but also has been helping both children and adults with learning disabilities do the same. This is Dr. Theresa Nicassio, and I hope you have a fantastic week.